Joining me via Skype is an environmentalist, Hamzat Lawal. Thank you very much, Hamzat, for joining me this morning. So let's talk about this now. World Open Defecation Day. 47 million people in Nigeria now prone to sickness, of course, and practice open defecation. And the nation is launching the Use the Toilet campaign. First of all, 47 million people. How does this come to you?
Well, thank you for having me. This is a disaster. We cannot be the poverty capital of the world. We cannot be the most black populous nation, and now we're the capital of open defecation in the world. It's really sad. What I expected the minister to do and the executive is to declare a national emergency, because if we declare a national emergency on open defecation, then we would get the needed investment and put all the infrastructures in place, and then this would raise more awareness and people would understand the danger that is ahead of us.
You talk about a national emergency, but we see that every year we only talk about the World Toilet Day, but it seems like there is nothing being put in place to solve the problem of open defecation.
They've put a few mechanisms in place, you know, talking about total community health sanitation. But then again, we don't follow implementation. For instance, a lot of houses in the communities don't even have a functional building plan where they inculcate toilet facilities. You know, communities don't have access to potable drinking water. Over about 20% of over 200 million people have access to potable drinking water, because when you don't have drinking water and you openly defecate, it means you have to go to the riverside to clean yourself up. This could cause outbreak of cholera and other waterborne diseases. So I believe that as much as we need to put stronger regulations, what it's important is to implement this regulation and follow through on these regulations. But beyond that, government needs to prioritize open defecation and providing access to potable drinking water. Even in the urban area, you know, citizens don't have access to pipe-borne waters. A lot of households have their own private water. And this would take a toll on the environment at the long run.
Okay, that's a serious one. Now, the theme for this year's World Toilet Day is Leave No One Behind. What steps should we take to ensure that none is left behind in this campaign?
For us to achieve the Sustainable Development Goal, we must not leave anyone behind. So, practical step, the legislators have a key role to play. The executive have a key role to play, but most importantly, the private sector. We must also see this as an avenue to generate revenue and to create value. You know, forgive my language, but this can actually inspire what we usually call shit business, because there's a lot of money in shit business. But we need to also put framework in place and provide access to credit and loan so that entrepreneurs can venture into these businesses and collect waste and turn them into wealth. Mind you, we can use some of this waste in agriculture, in our farmlands, and also to generate energy, because waste actually produce methane. So, but we must look at this holistically, and every sector of governance will play a critical role. But most importantly, citizens need to be more aware, and government needs to invest more money in creating this awareness.
Well, of course, you talk about a particular business, and it's quite a serious business, Mr. Hamzat. So, in all of this now, children bear the brunt of this crisis that we are in. And of course, looking at schools, a lot of schools are dilapidated and not having proper waste channels now. What can the Ministry of Education do in clamping down on those schools?
So we did a needs assessment in Kaduna State, and we found out that over 609 public schools do not have access to toilet and water facilities. That's just Kaduna State. I'm sure if we visit the 36 states and all the public schools, government-funded schools, do not have access to water and toilet. And what this tells you is girls lose about 5 to 7 days of gaining education, because when they're on the menses, they can't go to school. And also this has reduced enrollment. So when we're talking about increasing enrollment and ensuring girl child get education, if we don't provide access to water and toilet facilities, women get kidnapped by going to the bush, or girls get kidnapped or raped by going to the toilet in the bush or trying to use the bush. So this is quite important. And of course, this would reduce inequality in Nigeria. Because if you look at the inequality gap, it's quite high. So as government plan to build public institutions, and I'm not only talking about schools. If you go to the marketplace, there are no public toilets, there are no access to water. So when governments are making plans to build, they should also provide budgetary allocation to ensure that they provide water and toilets. But you need to also separate these toilets, because you can't have one toilet for both male and female. You have to separate them and ensure that the waters are actually functional and they're clean and potable. But this goes along to increase investment.
Now, it's instructive that you mentioned the marketplace. I mean, government creates marketplace. Sometimes marketplaces just spring up by themselves. Apart from calling on government at every point, is the onus not on the people themselves to be able to create toilet, knowing that sanitation is quite important?
Well, when people don't know, when they're not aware and they're not informed, then they won't take it important and they won't take it serious. That's why government needs to prioritize this and call it a national emergency so people take ownership. But then again, the private sector have a role to play, because when government build public institutions like marketplace, they can concession toilet business. So when you use public toilets, you pay a token so that this money is used to maintain the toilets and you get better service delivery. So it's a win-win for everyone. But mind you, there's no free lunch in Freetown.
That's true, of course, no free lunch in Freetown. And we see that, of course, the launch of the Use the Toilet campaign by the federal government. How do you think this will ensure cleanliness in not just marketplace, but schools, but homes and every other part where we don't have facilities for defecation? And how will this curb open defecation?
It will go a long way to curb open defecation if government follow through some of our policies. But what is key is coordination. How can we coordinate between government, civil society, private sector, and international development partners? But most importantly, putting citizens at the center of this coordination and having them take ownership. Because if we do this, then we'll have cleaner environment, we'll have access to potable drinking water, and we would end open defecation in Nigeria. Mind you, we have the Decade of Action Plan has been launched by the United Nations, and we have less than 10 years to achieve the Sustainable Development Goal and ensure that we can reduce poverty, because open defecation would actually trigger poverty in Nigeria.
Now, put into perspective how critical access to toilet is, such that it is said to save lives.
Well, thank you for having me. If you don't have access to quality potable drinking water and access to toilets, then you're at the verge of contacting diseases. And what this means is you're going to spend out-of-pocket money from your savings to cure these diseases. So open defecation, it's an emergency, it's a crisis. And of course, when you talk about poverty, if you don't deal with open defecation, it means that you cannot cross that poverty ladder in Nigeria.
All right, India used to be the capital for open defecation, but it found a way around it, and Nigeria has now taken that position. Is it so difficult to resolve in this part of the country?
No, it's not difficult. All you need is a very strong political will, but also build a campaign and a strategy centered around people, where people take ownership. But for them to take ownership, they have to be informed, they have to be aware, and most importantly, they have to contribute to this whole strategy, so that implementation of it will be much more easier. It's impossible. India achieved it because of the political will and because they centered their advocacy and their strategy around their people and their citizens in India, and Nigeria can follow suit.
All right, Hamzat Lawal, we have to leave it at this point. Thank you for your time.